Hey everyone, Raj here. I hope you guys are well. Tonight I am back with a video which is all about 10 great fragrances for the casual consumer. For me, that's a term I've used a few times in my videos, and what it all means to me anyway is somebody who doesn't want to have a massive collection of fragrances like a lot of us fragrance enthusiasts like to have. um, they don't want to, or maybe they can't spend huge amounts of money on all of these bottles, and they want something that is easy to wear, is accessible in terms of scent, and that will smell great on them and other people will like smelling on them. And I definitely feel I've got a great list here of these 10 fragrances in this list. Next thing to mention is that I have 4 of these bottles. Meaning I currently own them, and the remainder I have owned in the past. So these are all fragrances that I've worn, and these are ones that I know, and I'm just speaking from my experience. It's not in any particular order. But these are the ones I've picked out, and some of these I have reviewed, and if I have reviewed them, I'm going to leave a link to that review in the description box. So let's just get into the first one. First one on the list, again, as I said, no particular order. It's from the House of Chanel, and it is Bleu de Chanel. Bleu de Chanel, a very, very popular fragrance. I'm talking about the EDT version, the Eau de Toilette, and not the new EDP version, the Eau de Parfum, which I'm not actually a fan of, to be honest. The EDT has a kind of mixture between a freshness and also a spicy, woody, incensey notes. The freshness coming from a kind of bergamot, a very light vetiver, and it is a fragrance that actually, I don't want to say like sold, but recommended to about 3 or 4 different people, and they've all really liked the fragrance, and one guy actually I know has gone through quite a few bottles. It's very popular for a reason. Bleu de Chanel from the House of Chanel. Next, a fragrance from the House of Tom Ford. Now, Tom Ford has what he calls a signature line, and this one is called Grey Vetiver. Grey Vetiver is a really stripped back, classy, simple fragrance, revolving around a clean vetiver note, which is a root of a grass. It's mixed in with a little bit of spicy ginger, a touch of citrus, and maybe a little bit of white musk in the background. It's really kind of like a tailored fragrance with all the excess taken out. It's really good. A little bit linear to me, but I owned it and I really enjoyed it when I wore it. Tom Ford's Grey Vetiver. Next on the list is a fragrance from the House of Prada, the Italian designer house, and this one is Prada Amber Pour Homme. Prada Amber Pour Homme is basically all about soap and spice. A very light, mild spice coming from maybe a little bit of saffron in there. The soapy, the traditional or signature soapiness of many Prada fragrances is really present in this fragrance, and is a great fragrance, I feel, for the work environment. It's very inoffensive, but it has some nice nuances in the whole development of the fragrance, and I think it's a very, very easy choice. It's a very sophisticated scent and goes well with a suit. Prada Amber Pour Homme. Next up on the list is a fragrance from the house of Acqua de Parma, and this one is Colonia Intensa. So this one is might not be known to many people, to maybe some people or many people, I'm not sure. It's not one that you'll find in your, say, your everyday department store. It's a little bit more pricey and a little bit more hard to find, but go to a big place and you will find a whole bunch of Acqua de Parma fragrances. This one, I feel, is a really nice mix of actually so many different accords. You've got citrus notes in there, which this Italian house does really nicely. It is a traditional cologne, composition, florals in there, base notes which I wish were a little bit more noticeable, but they are in there, leather and different woods. It's a very it's a gentleman's fragrance, I would describe it as, and it is an eau de cologne, so don't expect huge amounts of longevity, but it's a really classy scent, and it's one that I would actually consider buying again. Acqua de Parma's Colonia Intensa. Next on the list is a fragrance that, in fact, the next two are fragrances that I do currently own at the moment, and I've reviewed both of them and mentioned them several times. The first one is from the house of Dior. They're both from Dior actually, and this one is Dior Homme Intense. Without a doubt, one of the best mainstream fragrances ever created. I think this is just on another level. It's so different. I could speak about this fragrance all day. I really could. There's a lot of cocoa in there, nice powdery iris note in there. There's a bit of cedarwood, and it's typical of Dior Homme line actually, because the notes are stripped back and just done to such a high level in terms of quality. One of the best fragrances I've ever tried. Dior Homme Intense. I love wearing this in evenings. I have worn this to work, but I kind of felt it was a little bit, I don't want to say inappropriate, but there are better occasions to wear it. Evening wear, when you're in a suit, your finest shoes, just throw this on. It's a winner. You can't go wrong with it. I really don't think you can go wrong. A little bit daring, but worth trying for sure. Next up is again from Dior, and this is Dior Homme Sport. Dior Homme Sport is again, like many Dior, like quite a few of the well, not all of them, but most of the Dior Homme line, stripped back. Pretty much four main ingredients in here: iris, cedarwood, ginger, and I think grapefruit as well. Just done to a good level. Each one is very noticeable. It's a very kind of uplifting spring summer type fragrance. One actually that I noticed I got a little bit tired of after wearing it several times, but it's a great option for that warmer weather. Very classy, sophisticated scent, and is really well received by a lot of people who are like smelling that fragrance on you. It gets a lot of compliments. So does Dior Homme Intense actually. So Dior Homme Sport. Next up on the list is fragrance from the house of Hermes, and this one is called Terre d'Hermes. Terre d'Hermes. I'm talking about the EDP version, the Eau de Parfum. I haven't tried the original, and I know there is now a new version which is called something like Eau Très Fresh, something very fresh, something like that, which is a reinterpretation of the this really popular fragrance, which is again, it's one of those classy scents. A lot of these fragrances are very sort of classy, sophisticated scents. Maybe that's kind of why I'm drawn to them. I kind of like that style, and again, a great option for work. I remember in a place that I used to work at, there was one guy who used to wear this, and it definitely had a great presence on it, but nothing too loud. There's like an earthy orange note in here. That's pretty much what it's all about. There is obviously a bit more going on, but it's just well done. There are some houses out there where I don't think you can go wrong. Chanel, although I'm not a huge fan of Chanel, but they are good. Dior, Hermes, Thierry Mugler, Dolce & Gabbana, Versace. These are some houses where, I would kind of push people towards if they're looking for a bit of advice on mainstream fragrances. And you can almost forget about the rest, to be honest. Well, kind of. So, Terre d'Hermes from the house of Hermes. Next up is from the house of Lacoste. Now, this one is called Lacoste pour Homme. Lacoste pour Homme, a fragrance that I have reviewed and kind of took me by surprise because it's pretty much an anomaly. I'm not a fan of Lacoste fragrances. I do really like Lacoste clothing actually, but the fragrances, nothing has really grabbed my attention apart from this one. You know, nothing really stood out. But Lacoste pour Homme is a kind of different animal. It's slightly boozy, kind of from like a almost like a plum liqueur. There is a plum note in there, which is, you know, not the most authentic thing you're ever going to find, but is kind of sweet and mildly spicy on the skin. It really did take me by surprise, and I would recommend it. It's kind of good, I feel, for works, and then maybe when you're going out, maybe on a date, something like that, a casual date, you know, not a first date. Spray this on, and it just works. You know, it just works. Lacoste pour Homme. The final two on my list are I have bottles, and this one is one of my most recent purchases from the house of Guerlain. Guerlain, I don't feel, I mentioned this before, I don't really feel is like, I just get the impression that it's not very well known by the casual consumer. Maybe something to do with distribution. You're not really going to walk into a small fragrance store and find it. It's mainly, I think, in the bigger department stores. And this one is L'Instant de Guerlain Pour Homme Eau Extreme. Here we go. Now down at the bottom it says Eau de Parfum. I'm not going to try and get the camera to focus on, but just a quick word about this. This is the new bottle design. The old one had this black kind of border, which actually looked really good. I really liked it, but they've changed it and they've put Eau de Parfum on the bottom of the bottle. The fragrance hasn't changed itself. It's all about this cocoa note, amber, woods in there. It's a very bold fragrance. It's definitely one that is quite a powerful scent and leaves an impression on other people, I've noticed. It has similarities to Nascimato's Pardon, but is a cheaper but alternative, but it's still great. It's a really well-made fragrance from Guerlain. They have probably access to, I think, probably some of the best ingredients out there, and they've done a really good fragrance here. Cocoa is one of my best favorite ingredients, and it's very dusty here, and it's fantastic. It really is. L'Instant de Guerlain Pour Homme Eau Extreme. Pretty long name. And now, guys, on to the final bottle in this list of 10 great fragrances for the casual consumer. It's one I've mentioned several times, and to be honest, I really need to review this. So I guess I won't say too much about it. It's from the house of Van Cleef and Arpels, and this one is called Midnight in Paris. Again, this is the EDP version. I guess I'm always drawn to the EDP versions, or the more intense versions of fragrances. That's not on purpose. I mean, sometimes I haven't tried the original, but most of the time I seem to be drawn to the more slightly more complex or intense versions. And this is a really beautiful fragrance. It really is. I feel that it doesn't work well in warm weather. I've come to the conclusion, and I've worn this a few times in warm weather, and it doesn't really work. It's really cold weather fragrance. It's one that has a very noticeable and kind of loud leather note in the opening, but then that kind of calms down, and you're joined by, you know, sweet almonds and incense. And there's a bit more going on. I won't go into too much detail because I have a feeling I'm going to be reviewing this soon. But yeah, and this is one of those fragrances that actually, if you want to get it at a good price, you'd have to go online to get it. And you don't see the EDP around. Maybe it's been discontinued, but if you can get your hands on it, what a scent. So there you go, guys. That is my list right there for the casual consumer. I hope this is useful to people who are maybe just looking to get into fragrances, or just want a recommendation and you don't want to spend huge amounts of money. You don't feel the need to be buying 20, 30, 50 bottles and having those in your collection. Maybe you could own, if you owned all of these, that would be a great collection. If you owned half of these, that would be a great collection, because this covers all different bases: work, casual, dates, formal, kind of informal. So yeah, so over to you guys now. What do you think about this list? Do you disagree? Do you agree? What other fragrances would you have in there? This isn't like a complete list, like a definitive list. You know, there are many other scents out there that could be in here. I'm just kind of drawing on personal experience. So let me know your thoughts, guys. It's always great to hear from you. And thanks for everyone who has subscribed recently. And I will be back soon with a couple of reviews. Take care.